I suffered 1,000 deaths. I got so bad that I prayed to die. I begged to die. I tell you how I begged to die. The suffering was so great. And they weren't doing anything for me. All right, the Mother Superior eventually called in an outside Roman Catholic doctor. And you know, the Roman Catholic doctor come in with the Mother Superior, and he took care of my body. He put something on it, put the bandages on me. He come back ever so often. 2 or 3 months he come back. And I'm getting better. What do they ever want me to get better for? Only to hurt me again. That's the only thing you can think of. All right, I got better. The first time I ever went to the refectory in this particular convent, after I got out of there, was able to walk. I'll never forget, we come in from back there and we walk around like this. And here are the tables down here. I come down just like that. The other little nuns were ahead of me, but I'm going pretty slow. I'm not well. And they could go a little faster. Not running, but they walked a little faster. And I got down just about that far, and they gathered around the table, but there was not one empty place at that table. And it scared me, and I don't know what to do, and you're bound by such fear anyway. And so I just stood right there. I didn't know the mother was back there behind me, and here she comes right down behind me. And she said to me, "You keep walking." And I did. I kept right on walking quite a distance to the corner of the room. And there was a shelf in the corner of that room. And on that shelf was a big old tin cup full of strong black coffee, no milk and sugar, and my piece of bread, 4 ounces of bread. That was my breakfast, and there it was in the corner. I had to stand there with my nose in the corner and eat my breakfast. All right, when they brought me up, we don't get any noonday meal. When they brought me out for the evening meal, when they did the same thing, I come down just like this. And the other girls all gathered around here. Everything's there. All right? And there is the thing on the shelf in the corner. You'd be frightened too. You don't know what to do. Right here are 3 life-size statues. All right? The mother comes slipping right down behind me, and she said, "You keep walking." I did. So I walked until I got over here. Now she marched me over this way. This is a floor, a bare floor down here, wood floor. And there she had taken the vegetables out of the pan and put them down there on the floor in a little pile. And there my piece of bread was laying on the floor, and my tin cup full of coffee was sitting there. That's where I ate my meals for quite a while. This I'm being punished for having escaped or run away from a convent. And I tell you, folk, it was a terrible, it was humiliating, very humiliating. All right, after I began to get much stronger, and I was able to do some work and so on and so forth, one day I asked the Mother Superior if I could come to her office. I want to talk to her. And she gave me that privilege. And I remember when I walked into her office, she asked me to sit down, but I didn't sit down. I said, "Mother Superior, if you don't make me commit sin," oh, I know that. Just some of you can't swallow that because you don't know anything about convents. You think you do, but you don't, unless you've been a nun. And I would know that in 2 minutes after I talked to you. All right? The Mother Superior said, when I said, "If you don't make me commit sin, I won't break any rule in this convent." She looked in my face and said, "If you don't break any rules, one day we'll let you out in the yard for a short period of recreation." I didn't believe her, but she said that. And that's all there was to it. But she went on to say this, "Your life will be a life of penance and suffering." It was anyway, because I dared to run away from a convent, to escape from a convent. And everything that woman was big enough to inflict on my body, she inflicted it on my body. Oh, listen, folks, how many times have they taken my headgear off? Every 3 months the clippers put on my head. I have no hair. My Bible teaches me for women not to cut your hair. But there they don't even read the Bible, so they don't know anything about it. All right, and so, but I didn't even know it then, of course, myself. But anyway, they clip my hair with a pair of clippers. I had the hair on my head. They would take my headgear off, and then they would put a crown of those thorns on my head, and I wasn't going anyplace. They didn't put it there to make me look pretty. This is my penance. And then they took that heavy cross that I told you about last night, between 4 and 6 feet tall, made of heavy timber, and they would hang that over my shoulder. And even though I haven't had enough food to eat, even though seemingly my stomach is laying against my backbone, I would have to drag that cross as Jesus dragged that cross here on earth. I don't think I ever dragged it more than 4 feet. I went down. I couldn't. I didn't have enough food under my belt. But you know, when I went down, I would just pass out, of course. All right, and then that crown would pop off of my head. And you know what she would do? Just pour a bucket of water right over my head, pick the crown up, put it back on my head, put the cross back on my shoulder, and try to make me pull it again. Oh, listen, folks, I learned to hate that old Roman cross just as much as I hate Satan right now, because it brought pain, it brought suffering, it brought torment, and I learned to hate it in the convent. And so the penances. Then she would take me down into the furnace room, the basement where the furnace is, and you know, that woman would do this. she would take me, there's a hot water pipe about as big as that over there, right in front, about this close to the furnace door. And she would lead me up there, stick all my clothing down to my waistline and make me hold my hands like this around that hot water pipe, and she fastens them securely, and my feet were fastened together. Then the Mother Superior took the poker and put it in that furnace fire, and they burned 3 crosses on my bare back. That's a little bit of hell on earth if you want to know about it. That's suffering. That's real suffering. You don't eat for quite a while, and you don't sleep for quite a while, and they don't put anything on the burn. They don't do anything for it. That's real torment. That's real suffering. But I'm supposed to believe it's making me holier. It's drawing me closer to God. And they teach us to believe that God is made happy through my suffering. Oh, what lies, what lies, what lies. And think Mother Superiors are telling those lies. And they wear a holy habit as I wear a holy habit. And people look at them as if they were something that dropped out of heaven. If they don't repent of their sins and clean up and make things right with God, they'll spend eternity in hell. The balance of the eternity, they will go to hell and spend eternity there. Nothing can save them unless they repent and clean up, because they would contaminate heaven if they would be privileged to go to heaven. Well, these are terrible things to happen to little nuns that went there to pray for lost humanity. And why do they do these things? Because it doesn't come out in the headlines of your newspaper. Because you don't hear one word about it over your radio. This is all undercover. You're not going to hear. You're not going to know about these things. They're going on. We're supposed to live and die and be buried back there, and we can die and be buried 10 years, and our folk will never know a thing about it. Oh, let me tell you, it's not funny by any means. Oh, no. All right. I stayed in that convent. Now she inflicted one punishment after another upon my body until my body was broken, and didn't take too long to break it the second time because it was not well from the first time. Well, these are terrible things, but on and on we go. All right. You know what happened one day after she broke me almost completely? I was there 28 months and a half the last time. And oh, folk, I didn't think I'd ever get out of the convent. I never even planned to get out of the convent. I never thought about it. I'm much older, and I knew I couldn't stand much more, and I knew I wouldn't live very long, and so on and so forth. But you know, one day, after 28 and a half months went by, one day the Mother Superior named 18 little nuns, and I was one of those nuns, and she took us up on first floor into the kitchen. I told you the kitchens are on first floor. And oh, I didn't believe it was happening to me, but it did. The Mother walked over there and unlocked that kitchen door. And she gave us 7 bean bags. It's just a little old sack filled with dry beans. And she was going to let us go out here in the yard. Now there's a high wall out there, 18, 20 feet high. Don't worry, you're not going to get out. You're just out there, what we call the patio. There's lovely green grass, there's flowers, and there's shrubbery out there, but beautiful, beautiful green grass. Well, I hadn't had my feet on Mother Earth all the years I lived in a foreign country. I haven't had them on Mother Earth all the 28 and a half months I was in this convent. I never had my foot on the ground. I never saw sunset or sunrise. I never saw a tree or a flower. I tell you, it's a dismal place. All right, now, the first little nun that walked off of there, and you walk out on a little cement stoop, and there's 3 steps going down. And you know what she did? She walked down. That little nun lay right flat down on the ground like that, her face buried in the grass, her hands outspread. Oh, Mother Earth, it is so wonderful. Just to feel Mother Earth and to feel that lovely green grass was really a privilege upon a privilege. And the next little nun that went down laid right down beside this, and in other words, 18 of us done the same thing. We lay side by side. We didn't touch the bean bags. We just laying there. We were so happy to touch that green grass and to feel it beneath our body. And there we lay. All right, the Mother was in, and we were out there, all of us, 18 of us alone. And we were not to talk, you know. We can play the beanbag and for recreation, but we're not to talk or to speak to each other. All right, we were laying there, and all of a sudden, I already explained to you about noises. We don't make any noises. But something on the other side of that high wall, I heard a noise. I don't know what it is, of course, but it was coming closer, and the closer it came, the louder the noise became. And oh, my, it's bothering me, something terrible. And I'm wondering what it is, but I have no way to find out what it is. And so we lay there. And it seemingly got closer and closer, louder and louder. Then I thought, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to wiggle and wiggle and wiggle until I get my head this way. And then I could lay my head on my arms like that, and all down there is that big iron gate. And I thought, well, if I could get my head this way, maybe it'll break the monotony of my convent life just to see what goes by that iron gate. That's a privilege upon a privilege to a nun. Oh, listen, folks, I got turned around. You say, why didn't you get up and turn around? There's 17 nuns there. We are not friends. You don't have any friends in Cloistered. You don't trust them, they don't trust me. All right, so you don't do anything to cause any more trouble. You're in enough as it is. All right, so I just wiggled and got around, laid my hand up, I had on my hands like, and this is what I saw. I saw a great big old truck pull up in front of that big iron gate. I saw a man get out of that truck. I saw him take a wheelbarrow from the top of the truck, and I have never seen how the fuel come into the convent before in my life. Even though 22 years I spent in the foreign country, I never saw the fuel put in the convent. All right, I saw him take that wheelbarrow from the top of the truck. Then I saw him, that was a load of coal, and he filled the wheelbarrow full of coal. He come up here and he unlocks that big iron gate. He rolls the wheelbarrow in and sets it down right there, and then he swings that mammoth old gate in. It's mammoth. And that noise, oh, a voluminous noise it made when that lock jam hit, of course. Well, I'm laying there and I'm thinking fast. Oh, I'm thinking, racing, my mind's racing. And oh, I wonder if I have the nerve, when he comes back for the next load, if I'll have the nerve to run ahead of him and run through that gate. But oh, you're frightened. The fear is something terrible. And you know, he come for the second load. And he did the very same thing. And he slammed the gate and it made just as much noise. And I lay right there on the ground. The others never moved, neither did I. We laid there. But oh, when he went for the third load, he filled the wheelbarrow, he rolled it in, he set it down, and he swung that gate identically like he swung it the other two times. But something happened, and of course we are so sensitive to noises because we don't break silence there. It's like death there. All right? This is what my ears picked up. Something's wrong. That gate did not make as much noise. I wonder, could it be possible the lock jammed? I don't know. I'm too far from it, of course, to see or to know. But I'm thinking fast. And you know, I wouldn't dare to move because we are not allowed to look up on a man other than a priest or bishop because they tell us it's a sin. And I don't want one of those girls catching me looking at that man. I can assure you they'll tell on me. And I'll be in a lot of trouble. But anyway, I wouldn't have done it, and I know better. I wouldn't have. I waited until he left and went away. And it took him quite a while to go way out around the convent and to put that coal in. And do you know what I did? I turned around and sat up right there. Then I got up, and I'm watching. They didn't move. All right, then I start walking off. We are barefoot nuns, of course. I start walking off like this, and I began stooping down, picking up spears of grass because I'm half scared to death. But I think I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to see if the gate's still locked jammed or if it's locked. At least that's what I thought I was going to do. And so I'm starting toward the iron gate, but slowly, stooping down, picking up grass, scared so badly. And you know, the closer I got to it, maybe from here to your front door, and I thought it looked to me like it was jammed, but I'm not sure. But I took a gamble on it, and I made a run for that iron gate. And when I hit that iron gate with my body, that thing swung wide open, and I don't have one bit better sense than to believe my lovely Lord let that lock jam. I believe God let that lock jam. I believe God had a hand on me from the time I was born in this world. I believe that with all of my heart. All right, folks, and that old door went open. I tell that gate, I slid, and the cinders there, and I skinned up my face and nose and the palms of my hands, but who cared about that? I was on my feet like a flash, but I'm on the other side of that gate, and don't you ever think that I didn't run against it with my body to shut it. Now, I don't have very much time. It's a beautiful sunshiny day, and oh, the wind is blowing quite hard, but I started running. And I kept running. And I have my, my veil, you know how we're dressed. And that silly old veil just kept coming down, and I'd whip it back over my head and trying to run. Of course, I'm running on my toes, and I'm walking with eyes downcast and so on and so forth, and you don't make much headway. And I'm fighting that veil. And I didn't see anybody anywhere around when I was running. And all of a sudden I struck something, and where that man come from, I don't know to this day. But there was a man, and I run right into him. I didn't see him. And I don't know whether he was frightened more than I, but I think I scared the fellow half to death because I'm sure he never had an experience like that. And when I could talk, I said, I'm sorry, but oh, please help me hide. I've just escaped from this convent right behind me. And that man was so scared he could hardly talk to me. And finally, when he could say something, he said, come with me. I put a load of hay in my hay barn, and you can get under the hay. I followed that man to where his barn was, and he saw a ladder there, and he told me to go up that ladder, and I started up the ladder. I got almost to the top, and that man said, come back down. I got a better place for you to hide. I'm looking looking for a safe place, by the way. All right, I come back down the ladder, and he took me out of the barn and took me on down sort of like a lane to where his home was. And he had a fence around the backyard. He opened the gate, and I went down the backside, walked with him up on the back porch, and he opened the door, and I went behind him, right close to him. And you know, when he stepped inside of his kitchen, I saw him pick the broom up there, and the next thing I know, I'm right there beside him. Next thing I know, up there in the ceiling is a scuttle hole, and he just reached up there with the handle of that broom and bruised the lid off of that scuttle hole, and quicker than I can tell you, he had me by the feet, and there I go, right up in that scuttle hole. Well,